So let's say that you and your spouse are deciding that you guys are ready to move, and you're deciding you don't know where you want to move, but it's just time for a change and you guys want to get away and switch your life up. Now here's the kicker. You have to consider your spouse's opinion. You have a few kids, so you have to consider what they think about it. Of course, your parents or your in-laws are going to have opinions as well, so you have to think about that. And then maybe you have that crazy uncle or an extended family that thinks about this from time to time as well. What do? How do you go about making your decision when it comes to buying your home? Now, before I get into that, I do want to say, welcome to The Practical Place. My name is Ryan Holguin. I am a certified project management professional, and I like to talk about project management in a practical way. I also like to dabble in just to the world of business itself, sometimes in sports from a commentary perspective, as well as get into data as it relates to business, sports, and everything in between. So if anything like that sounds interesting to you, I would encourage you to subscribe and join the 300 plus other subscribers here at the channel, and make sure you don't miss anything moving forward. So let's talk about buying a house. Let's say you and your spouse, you're going to move cities, you know that for sure, and you just want to, you have a remote job or you own your own company and you guys just want to get away. What sort of framework should one have when thinking through these decisions, and how to make a decision? Who do you consider? And that's primarily what I want to talk about today. So in project management, there's this framework called the power interest grid. Now I'm going to show a graphic of it here for you to view and look at. I'm also going to include an image, a version of it in the description if you want to just keep it for yourself. But there's a ton of these online that you can find. But basically what the power interest grid is it gives you this framework when it comes to work or projects specifically, and how to think about different stakeholders or those invested in your project or not invested, as you'll see here in a minute. It helps you rank or categorize different people within a project and how important they are to keep informed about what's happening in the project, or somebody that can absolutely make or break greenlighting or stopping your project as it relates to their power or influence on that project. So we're gonna go back to our house analogy. I feel like story is a really good way to help teach lessons, and so that's sort of my method and how I try to do things here. But let's say that you have so many voices. You have your spouse, you have your kids, you have your in-laws or your parents, you have extended family as well, and all these voices, everybody knows you're moving and they have all these opinions. How do you consider the weight of each person's opinion? Well, in the grid, and I'm going to keep it up here throughout the remainder of the video or as it's relevant, but in the top right quadrant, because there's going to be 4 quadrants, is going to be your spouse, which is somebody that has high power as well as high interest so into this project or this situation. So somebody who has high power, you should not make a decision to move as far as where you're going to move, what the house is going to look like, without consulting your spouse or collaborating with your spouse. So this is somebody that you have to really manage closely. So if in a project setting, maybe if you're, let's say in a project setting, you're having to finalize a video for a marketing campaign. Well, maybe somebody in that manage closely quadrant with high power, high interest is going to be your creative director. That's somebody who needs to make sure the brand is good. They're really invested in the creativity of the video. So you need to make sure that you keep them, informed on what's going on. You're collaborating closely with them because they, like I said, they can stop a project, they can greenlight it to move forward. So your spouse in this house situation is somebody you need to make sure you manage very closely and work with and collaborate. Now moving to the top left of the 4 quadrants is going to be the keep satisfied group, if you will. So in the house analogy, it's going to be your kids. Now, they're going to have high power in the situation as it relates to, you don't want to make a decision of moving to a neighborhood maybe where there's not, let's say you have young kids where there's not a lot of young kids maybe in that neighborhood, or maybe even in that city. Maybe it's an older town. That's not going to be a really fun childhood for them because they're not going to really grow up with any friends. So you want to make sure that you keep those folks satisfied. So those that have high power but low interest, like the kids maybe won't be as concerned about like what's the square footage of the house or what zip code are we going to live in, but they'll be really concerned, or you really start to feel it maybe a year or two later when they don't have any friends. So those are folks that you really want to keep really satisfied, because although they're not showing interest in all those things, they're going to be really influential in how your quality of life is once you get to the place that you're trying to get to. Going back to the video project, let's say you have your manage closely stakeholder, which is your creative director. And then on the keep satisfied, high power, low interest, and the creativity of it, maybe that's your legal team. Maybe it's somebody who you really need to keep satisfied on what you got, the end product of your video is, because you don't want to put something out there that's going to be get you guys in legal hot water, if you will. So you want to keep them informed so that they can help greenlight your project as well, but they don't really care that much about what the video looks like or the creativity behind it. They just want to make sure you're checking all the boxes from a legal standpoint. Now we're going to move down to the bottom right quadrant, which is the keep informed category. So these are people that have really high interest in the situation, but really low power, or should at least have really low power. And I honestly feel like this stakeholder, just in my own experience, has been the one that have been miscategorized, or there's been more weight put on people like this that really shouldn't be. So maybe this framework is going to help you just think through the weightiness of somebody's opinion. So going back to the house analogy, your parents, let's say, they have really strong opinions about where they want you to live. Let's say in this case, you live in the same town as them. Now, they're not going to be super pumped about you leaving. They might have really strong opinions about that. But you and your spouse, who you're managing closely and you're collaborating with, you guys have decided it's best for your family that you're going to leave. And that's just what you guys want to do. But your parents or her parents or their parents have really strong opinions. Now, you want to consider that. You want to keep them informed on what's happening, but you also really want to let them know sort of their place in a way by the way you communicate to them, and keeping them informed and letting them know, hey, this is the direction we're going. We really appreciate your opinion, but we're going to decide to go this way. Thank you for sharing your thoughts or opinions. Now, how you go about having that conversation is sort of up to you based on the relationship and all those things, but your parents in this case would be folks that you don't want to make them feel blindsided by the decision or what's happening. You want them to feel involved because they have really high interest in the situation here. Now, if I'm going back to the video project situation, let's say that this is somebody like your coworkers. They're not on the project, but they might be making videos themselves, for their project teams or stakeholders. And what you want to do is you want to keep them informed. They may have opinions because they have insight based on, videos that they've done in the past or videos they're going to be doing in the future, or they just might have their own ideas about what's creative or what looks good. That's great. You appreciate what their opinion is and you're going to consider that, but it's not going to hold as much weight as some of the higher two quadrants, or the top two quadrants, if you will. So you want to keep them informed, keep them happy, keep them satisfied as well, but you understand that their interest is really high. I mean, we have a lot of I'm sure everybody has coworkers out there who have opinion about everything, and that's great, and you appreciate their opinion, but there's also a place for their opinion, and sometimes those opinions should not take a high priority. Now, the way you go about, again, communicating that to your coworker or to your in-laws or to your parents in this case, you want to do it with tact, you want to do it with grace, you want to do it in a well-meaning way. You also want to understand in your own mind that their opinion should not take super high priority, right? So this is going to be the bottom right quadrant. So the last quadrant is the bottom left, which is low interest, low power in the project. So let's say, going back to the house analogy again, this is going to be your extended family. So these are folks who care about you. You see them, on holidays or whatever, and you're just going to sort of keep them, updated. But it's not in I'm going to go out of my way to call my cousin in a different state to let them know what's happening. But when you see them, on Thanksgiving, you might share with them, hey, we decided, we moved, and they may be happy for you. But at the end of the day, it's not really going to affect their life. They're not super concerned about it, but they're happy for you. And so those are folks that you just want to, you let them know when you let them know, but there's not a ton of effort you're going to go out of your way to inform them about. Going back to the video project analogy, this is going to be, again, somebody maybe in a different department, maybe it's your friend, maybe it's just a coworker you see from time to time. This is really just a random stakeholder. This is going to be somebody that isn't that involved, doesn't really care that much, doesn't have really that much influence or power on the project, and it takes really minimal effort to let them know about what's happening in the project. Now, pro tip, I guess, if you will, is making sure, just stepping away from the house analogy, in work, in projects, making sure that each stakeholder in your mind, certainly in your mind, is appropriately categorized. You understand where everybody should fit in a project, and you might even get to a place where you need to assign them or let them know where they're at in the project as far as priority and influence, and who's a core team member and who's not. A lot of the times projects may get stalled out. Maybe you've already experienced this, or you will experience this. projects get stalled out because we misplace stakeholders and the priority in which they are in a project, their opinion, their power. Maybe people that have been categorized to have really high power shouldn't have that much power, and they're the ones, but they have really high opinions, and they're the ones who slow down projects because they're critical about everything. And every time you do a video review, there's 100 different, call outs that they have about something, and it just really slows down the project. And before you know it, you've reviewed a video 100 times and you can't get this thing shipped out and to your customers. And so you want to make sure, as a project manager, you can do whatever you want, but my encouragement to you would be, you want to really understand the power interest grid, maybe save one to your desktop or just have it in your files of resources and study it and understand it. And whether you reference it or not, at least you have a framework in your mind of when you're encountering folks on a project team where they might fit. And it starts to help you really sift through whose opinion you should really consider, whose you shouldn't consider, who you really need to make sure you keep informed, who you need to keep satisfied, because there are times where there's high power people for your project or stakeholders that really aren't showing any interest, but you really need them to at least make decisions or be informed about what's happening, because otherwise you could ship something out and then it comes back and you've got to take it off the website, or you got to change the video because you really didn't get their approval. And so you don't want that to happen. So hopefully this video is an encouragement. Maybe it's a refresher for some of you out there. Maybe it's new information. If it's something that you find really helpful, let me know in the comments below. Maybe it's something you never thought about. Maybe there's something I missed about defining what the power interest grid is. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. As I said before, subscribe to the channel here, The Practical Place, where I try to really make things practical. I find myself a lot of the times on my journey through project management or in my career, when I do video research or whatever on any topic, sometimes it's really not that practical and it's been hard for me to find information. Now there's a lot of good things out there now, but I wanted to make a place where anybody trying to grow in their project management journey or in their career journey, that this would be a place where it would be really applicable. You could turn around today and start applying things. And so if that's something that really interests you, again, I would encourage you to subscribe here, like this video if you found value in it, share it with your LinkedIn community if this is something you feel like some of your colleagues should know about. But until next time, my name is Ryan Holguin here with The Practical Place. I will see you in the next video.